She has 2 children, Lane, who is single and working in Austin, and Aaron, who has been in the arms of Jesus for 10 years. She has worked at Green Acres for 30 years, an early education center, as the director. She retired for 7 years and enjoyed some traveling and doing some pottery and line dancing. I love that part. And then the Lord called her back to our staff, rehired in 2023 as our preschool minister. And I asked Lee to give us best practices for raising kids from preschool to about preteen. So you have a notes page today. You'll grab that, Lee. A notes page, and you're going to want to write down what is pertinent to you. Lee, thank you for sharing with us today. We are honored you're here.
There we go. Thank you so much. She gave me 15 minutes to tell you best practice for raising kids. I was, wow, okay, that's a little bit there. And you look at me and you hear my bio and you know I'm not a spring chicken. And so I've had a lot of years, and I look back, some with, oh, wow, nailed that, and some went, could have done that better. But raising kids is hard. Everybody agree with me that? It's just hard. And some of you have done it. And some of you are right in the middle of it, and some of you are right in the middle of grandkids. And there are some best practices that we want to do. I'll tell you, I did the very best that I could do with God as my witness. I raised a missionary, and I raised a wild man. So, you know, it's kids. Every child is different, and we do our very best. I don't want you to ever leave when thinking about what you've done with your children, for your children, as defeated. As long as you're looking to God, He's going to direct you and He's going to bless your efforts. So these are in no particular order, but we'll just start with kids spell love, Time. Time. They want you. They need you. And they need your full attention when you're with them. Please turn those devices off. You're chosen by God to be their parent or their grandparent. Just like Debbie said, you are not chosen to be their friend. You are chosen to set limits, and you're chosen to guide them. Please, I have seen families that are led by the little 3-year-old dictator in the family. Do not abdicate your role. You are the parent. God chose you. Don't let the little kid be the leader. You're the leader of the family. Okay. Teen families, point number 4. We're the Evans. This is what we do. Even if it's different from what the Jones do next door, this is the Evans. This is what we do. It is a privilege for your children to live in your home. And so they need to be a part of that. You do not birth children to be their slave. You're not their slave. You're a team. And if there's things that need to get done, get them helping you. They can. I grew up with a dust rag in my hand. I hate to dust to this day. But my mother said on Saturday morning, we will dust and vacuum and clean this house. And that was a routine because that's what the Evans did. We work together. Give them the jobs appropriate to their age. That helps them develop responsibility when they grow up, because every one of them will have a job later. Number, I think it's 5. I lost my name. Take no out of your vocabulary. You know what the first words toddlers say after mama, daddy? They say no, and they know how to use it, and they stomp their foot. They know how to. Please take as many of the no's out of your directions to your kids as you possibly can. All you got to do is flip it around and flip it to the positive instead of the negative. Instead of say, stop running. You know what they hear when you say that? They hear, she wants me to run. So I'm going. Just say, walking feet. Use your walking feet. We're going to walk. Oh, that's so much more positive. And we want to give positive instruction to our kiddos. There is power in choices. Did you know that not everything with a child has to be a battle? Choose your battles wisely. No. So here's the deal with choices. I love choices. Do you want to do this or do you want to do this? The secret is you make sure that you're okay with whichever one they choose. They don't have to know that. But when they get to choose, they feel power. Okay, I'm going to wear the blue shoes. Okay, that just makes them feel like, I got this. But you have tricked them because you gave them that. Okay. When you think of discipline, think, I got to discipline my kids. I want you to remember that discipline comes from the word disciple. That's the root word for discipline, disciple. So when you're thinking about discipling your kids, your grandkids, you're teaching them the way to go. You're teaching on the way. Catch them being good and praise them for it. Your words are powerful. The words you say to them wrap around and around on a loop in their brain and say, my mama thinks I can do it, so I know I can. Okay? Encourage them in the things they're good at. God's gifted your kids in different ways. They're not all going to be the same. But encourage them. Your words are powerful to them, and that will help them go on their way. Try new things with them. Try some new things. Let them try. Maybe they won't be so good at it. It's okay. Let them see you try new things. First time I went line dancing, I didn't think I could count to 8. I wasn't sure. But I stuck with it, and I can do it pretty good now. Let me tell you, I will not do it busted out and move in the church, but I tell you, try new things. And if you fail, let them see that. If you mess up, apologize to your kids. You can ask them, forgive me, I was wrong. I reacted too strong on that. I said the wrong words. Please forgive me for that. Because when they know that you have asked forgiveness, they will know that they can ask forgiveness of you. Because you're the model. You're the role model for God in that. I've just got to, a few weeks ago, go to a conference, and I heard this lady, Kathy Cook, Koch, Kathy Cook. She has written some wonderful things, and there's a wonderful blog, you young mamas, look this up, Celebrate Kids with Dr. Kathy. She's got a fabulous group of books, Parent Differently, Raising Kids with Biblical Character That Changes Culture. She says, let's give more attention to their character than their obedience. Because if you get the character right, then the obedience falls along. I'm telling you, this woman is wise. She's got lots of books and lots of stuff, so I encourage you to do that. Please don't helicopter your kids. Let them make some mistakes. If they say, I don't need a coat, okay, you might be cold. Let them go. Then if they're cold, they will know next time you say get a coat, they'll get it. Okay? Those are little things. When they're little ones, they can make those choices because that's building independence, building responsibility, and then they learn to suffer the little consequences at the little times. So I encourage you to just give them the instruction that they need, and sometimes just let them, if they didn't do that science fair project till the night before, well, you know what's going to happen. So don't be running to Walmart at 2 a.m. to get their stuff. So love their daddy. Speak respectfully of your husband. They need to see that y'all are the role models. They're watching that. So I encourage you to speak respectfully about your spouse. Be real. There's no perfect parents. But God made you. He will equip you for the job if you ask him to lead you. That may be more or less than 15 minutes. I don't know, Debbie, but that's where I'm going to stop right there.
I love that, Lee. Thank you. Just a lot of treasure. I love that about building them up in what they're good at. Clark is skilled at basketball, my oldest grandson, and so we recognize that the Lord has probably given him that skill. And so John Mark and I would always tell him, "Man, you're good at making those baskets. You're good at shooting. Look how good you are. You can always make that basket." We went on, and sure enough, it was time for him to join the basketball team. And so we were talking about that. He's on the team, and here's his jersey and his number. And I said, "Well, buddy, what position do you play on the team? What position?" He said, "The shooter." I'm okay, like, shoot the ball, I'm the shooter. But he had gotten so confident in that, and listen, that's something he was good at. So when you begin to speak in to those things that you recognize, now you have to be paying attention to recognize some of those things. And I do not know to this day, we won't know this side of heaven, how it is that two kids raised under the same parents, under the same roof, with the same rules, without favoritism, make different choices. That happened in Lee's family. That happened in my family. We don't know, but the Bible says that they're bent in a certain way. So we want to get in that, teach that child in the way that they should go. It means the way that they are bent, and we all have different wiring. So girls are passing out our handouts from Kurt. Let me introduce Kurt to you today. I'm excited that he has given some time. Kurt is our pastor to students. He's been at Green Acres since 2022. He served as the middle school minister since 2014. He's also served on the student ministry staff at Houston's First Baptist Church and at Hyde Park Church in Austin. He's been married 8 years to Lauren. They have a precious little son named Cam. They have another little baby on the way in September. He is an avid Texas Longhorn fan, a Disney enthusiast, and a travel specialist, but most of all, he would say that he gets most excited about connecting with students and see them come to know Jesus and the plans that God has for their life. Would you please make welcome Kurt Faylis? Thank you, Kurt.
All right. I'm just curious, can y'all hear me okay if I don't use a mic? I'll use the mic. That's fine. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for inviting me in. You know, I was teasing with Lee before we came up here and said, Lee, don't take all my stuff. And she kind of did. But it's okay. We're going to have a great time and walk through this. So you have a handout in front of you. I put a passage that we all know. Even Pastor Michael referenced it in his message here on the Tyler campus on Sunday. But I still want to read it over us just to kind of set the framework of our responsibility as parents in imparting to the next generation. Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 through 9. Listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words that I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your city gates. Even from the beginning, God had a mandate for families and a mandate for parents to be the primary disciplers of their kids. And sadly, what I get to see in my 16 years in student ministry is that has gone by the wayside for too many families. The idea of dumping off your kids, whether that's at church or a private school or to someone else to be the spiritual influencers of your kids, that's been a miss, specifically in our American culture. And so, if we can fix anything in our generation and what's to come, there's a lot of stuff you'd say like, oh, if the next generation would do this or do that. If we could raise up a generation that understands what it looks like to lead their families, I think we would see some mighty movements of the Lord here in Tyler, in East Texas, and in the U.S. So then I put on here the next part of this, and Lee referenced some of these points. There's 4 phases in parenting. There's a lot of different approaches, different organizations or pastors have labeled these. I pulled from Focus on the Family. The 4 phases I want to mention to you is the first one, the commander phase, right? That's where my family is kind of coming out with our son, Cam. We have been the commander in his life, the boss of his life up until just a little bit ago. We're starting to transition over to coach, but commander, those early years, right? You're responsible for all things, so their safety, their well-being, feeding them, getting them dressed, all those things. They can't bathe themselves. Bless it. He still can't. He smells every night after being at daycare all day. The second one is coach, right? You start to give them maybe a little more autonomy, a little more freedom, but you're still right there with them. You're giving them instructions, guidance. You're giving them opportunities to make decisions. All that starts happening in those coaching years, through the elementary years, if you will. And then as they transition into those preteen years, the teenage years, you become the counselor. And in this phase, and I'll just mention that last one is consultant. As they launch into adulthood, you're no longer their coach or their commander. You come alongside and you consult them. You give them advice. They go off to college. They start in the workforce, wherever they go. If they haven't had opportunities to navigate the world and navigate culture, navigate their own decision processes, they're in trouble. And so in teenage years, they need opportunities to find success and failure, and for you as the parent to be alongside, giving them wise counsel and giving them instruction and helping them see what kind of choices to make. So what I put together for you is 10 wins as a parent of a teenager. And on here, I'm going to have some fill in the blank notes, because who doesn't love that? I love that for our students at times. And then you can add to these as I share information under each topic. But the first one is to own your own faith. Own your own faith. I didn't put it on here, but the second part of that, if I was to continue that line, is let it be seen. Let it be seen. Your student needs to understand why it matters that they believe in Jesus. Most of the students we see over across the street, they'll come to us and they'll have accepted Christ when they were 7, 8, 9 years old, whether that's with their parents, VBS, different great opportunities here at our church. That's awesome. But what they're starting to ask the question as they hit those preteen and teenage years is, well, why does it matter? Why do I care about Jesus? And if they don't see that you care as their parent about Jesus, that involves your schedule and commitment to church. That involves your own quiet times and the availability of you make it known, like what you think about God, what you think about his word, what you think about prayer. Those things all have to be prioritized in your own life and seen by your student. Okay, that matters very, very much. They want to know, is it worth it? Is it worth it to go to church? Is it worth it to pray? Is it worth it to evangelize and share the truth of who Jesus is to people? Doesn't matter. And so that's on you. Own your own faith. That's not for the church. That's not for another adult. That's on you. The second one, though, says make church a priority for you and for them. So all saying that it's on you, the church does want to come alongside. The church wants to be there to support. They want to champion. That's why we plan out things in special events like what we just had in our student ministry the weekend, and what we'll have this summer with camps and mission trips. We want to come alongside and give opportunities for spiritual growth. We want to see students involved in connect groups and all that kind of stuff. But you as a parent have to prioritize church, that it matters that you're a part of it. A sad thing, and I know this to be true because I watched it in my own life. I was a private school kid, K through 12. I went to, Debbie mentioned for me, I was on staff at Hyde Park Baptist Church in Austin. I was actually a student at that school, K through 12. And so my mom was a preschool minister at our home church. I grew up in church no matter what. And then I went to private school. And I had so many friends who didn't go to church. They would claim Christ, and their actions would say, hey, I have Bible class, and I have chapel, and I have to memorize scripture as part of school. But that was their faith. That was their religion. That was what they followed. That's what their families followed. To carry it over today, I've been talking some with our middle school minister, Colton Berryhill, and he's getting to know some of our middle school students. He's been on staff almost a year now, and we're seeing similar trends here in Tyler from some of our private school kids. They love, they would claim they love Jesus, and they may very well do so. But the model that their family has said is that, our church is Grace Community School. In fact, I've had 7th graders tell me that their church is Grace Community. I was like, oh, what do y'all do on Sundays? Oh, I don't go on Sundays. I mean, that's my Bible classes. I have chapel. I'm like, oh, really? And that's a miss. Not because there's anything wrong with Grace School or Brook Hill or any of those all private schools. They're great opportunities. Kings Academy, all are great things. They can reinforce biblical truth. They can provide a great learning environment, but it's not a substitution for the church. And so prioritize your family being in church. Prioritize that. Dr. Richard Ross, and I pull some stuff from him. He is the man with student ministry. The guy has served in student ministry and around student ministry for probably 40, 50 years. He's at Southwestern Seminary, goes and teaches and leads still for students in I think he's over 80 now, but he's just a wealth of wisdom. Just this past weekend, I caught this post on it used to be called Twitter. Now it's X. I can't keep up with social media. It's too fast for me. But he said this: what is your highest goal for your student? Is it success in a vocation? Is it finding happiness, living morally? If any of those are more important than them living for the glory of God, it's an idol in your life. we want our kids to succeed. I want my son to be the best he can be, but not the best that he can be so he finds happiness, not the best that he can be so he is living comfortably and has a great job one day, not the best that he can be so he finds a great spouse, the best that he can be for the glory of God. And I trust and I believe God when all the rest of those things will fall into place if he does that. And so what are you aiming, right? The analogy I slipped in the back and heard with your arrows, what are you aiming your kids towards? Is it to loving God, pursuing his church, or is it other things? And church is just an add-on. And on top of that, church engagement is healthy for your whole family, and it's a responsibility of every believer. We've got to be in church. It's part of it, okay? Third one, be intentional to build and maintain a heart connection with your student. Be intentional to build and maintain a heart connection with your student. This is another Dr. Ross statement. I've got the privilege of 2 different moments in my ministry getting to sit with him at a conference where he led parents and students through this heart connection idea. And what he presents the argument is that heart connections are vital because that's the point of highest influence on a relationship. Whether it is a spouse together, that's a heart connection that has high influence. Whether it's a parent to a kid, that's a love, a connection through the heart that is a high influence. If that is broken between mom and dad and child, that'll start getting filled in by something else. Whether it is a friend group, whether it's another adult in their life, whether it's in their teenage years, a boyfriend or girlfriend, they'll look for all their advice, all their encouragement, all their insight, all the leading of what they should be doing. That should be coming from mom and dad. And so that heart connection and maintaining it matters. And what breaks those heart connections most often are emotional injury and limited time together. You've said hurtful things and not made it right. You've done hurtful things, maybe even without realizing it, but your child was so hurt by that, they've harbored that against you, and it has fractured that heart connection. Or you have made your own schedule as a parent so busy that you don't have time for your kid. You say, hey, when I'm home, I've got to, catch up on my own, whatever's on my phone. Hey, you know what? It's my time. I'm got to watch, the big game. Hey, you know what? I'm actually going out with my girlfriends tonight, or we're hanging out here. We're doing this. Hey, I've got to work late. All these things. And sometimes that is a reality. Your schedule can't always be dictated by your child's needs, but they have to understand that they are important. They have to understand that you schedule intentional time for them. So to build and maintain, you have to schedule time. That's number one. Manage the schedule of your family. My parents, I think they did a great job. I love them. I just so appreciate them. Some of you know them. They moved up here to Tyler and joined our church a couple years ago. But something they did that really helped in my life of scheduling time is they said I could only do one extra thing at a time. And I was a kid who wanted to do everything. Like when I was in elementary school through middle school years, I played soccer, and I played it a lot. And I love soccer. But I also love basketball, and I wanted to play flag football on my school's team, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that. And they made it very clear, Kurt, you can do one thing at a time. Our family only has a schedule that allows for you to have one practice schedule, one game schedule. When I hit high school, going to a smaller private school, there was all these opportunities like, hey, you could do theater, you could run track, you could play all the sports, do all the things you want to do. You can be real involved at your church too. And my parents were like, hey, church is number one. Whatever you do at school will fill in after that, but it's only one thing at a time. You schedule your time that matters so that you can maintain that heart connection. Number two, forgiveness. I already touched on that. Forgiving your student when they hurt you, because in these teenage years, more than likely, they're going to hurt you. Moms and daughters, it is like it comes so quickly. And you have to be willing to forgive them and let them know that you forgive them. And in the same way, when you model that forgiveness, your student is going to be more likely to come ask for forgiveness themselves. Rarely will a kid seek out to make the relationship right. You're the adult in the spot, fix the relationship, okay? And when you do that when they're little, it builds up, right? If you can play catch up in these ways when they're a teenager, but if you've set the stage and you've built these kind of heart connections when they're little, it'll carry over. Disciplining with consequences, not emotional outbursts. Have clear understandings like, hey, you've done something wrong. This is the consequence. Not, you've done something wrong. We're going to yell about it. You're going to storm off to your room. And later I'm going to yell, you're grounded, and that's it. That's probably not the healthiest way in any context to handle conflict, but with your child and to maintain that heart connection, have clear consequences. Make sure your kid knows what your consequences are if they break the rules early. Don't be reactionary. And that can be hard because sometimes it's personal, right? Like whatever they've done, like you just get mad, and there's maybe other things that have happened in your day that kind of tee you up and make you that much more frustrated. Hold that emotional outburst. Don't drive the discipline. And then the last one, and Debbie mentioned this, normalize your conversations to include words or phrases that bless, encourage, and build up. Don't make it abnormal for your kids to hear you say how great they are. Don't make it abnormal for your kids to hear you praise them, to celebrate them. That's a big deal. And what we may think is, oh, that's worth celebrating. They may like, that's no big deal. But the thing that they care most about that you recognize that they did, figure that out when they're younger or in their season of life and be able to celebrate it with them. I'm peel back the curtain on my parenting right now. My son loves this video game, Super Smash Brothers. If you know what it is, it's a little fighting game on Nintendo. You play as Mario characters or different ones, and he loves it right now. And he is terrible if he really knew. He could not hang with our students at the student center, but he loves it. And every time he wins, somehow he wins a game against the computer. He wants me to know. And so we jump up and down. We go, yeah, high fives, high fives, high fives. Do I know that I could beat him anytime I pick up the control? Absolutely. Do I think he's very good? Nope, he's not very good. But it matters to him that I see that he's having fun and having success right now. Now, in time, that'll transition to something else in his life. But I want to build him up. I want to celebrate him. I want to normalize that in our relationship. Number 4, provide pathways to earn trust. Provide pathways to earn trust. It's a gradual stair-step process. What can you trust them with that is small so they can get to something big? You want to protect your kid. I get it. You want to create good, healthy boundaries for them, whether that's in romantic relationships. You may have rules in your home or had rules in your home about when they can date, who they can date. All those are good things. About cell phones and having the privilege of having technology. Like you have pathways for those things. Build a stair step that they understand they can earn trust. They can also lose trust by not using it properly, right? So great model if we want to take the look at cell phones and technology. You know, you start them off at whatever is appropriate for your child, whether that's late elementary school, middle school right now, with some kind of digital device, whether it's an iPad, a tablet, maybe it's a cell phone. But I would encourage you to consider not one that has full internet access, right? Maybe it's just a cell phone that they can use to call mom and dad, maybe to text mom and dad, has a lot of safety nets on it. But over time, when they show that, hey, they can be responsible and not lose it, not break it, not leave it in the sand at the student center and then it gets lost. And wish I could tell you how many times a student loses their cell phone at the student center, but it happens like on a weekly basis. But they earn that, hey, I can be responsible with a little. Then you start pulling back the guards a little bit and you say, hey, all right, freshman year of high school, all right, you're ready. We're going to let you have a social media account maybe. But here's the rules on that. It's fully hidden and private from everyone else and you can only friend certain people that we approve. And you have this dialogue that keeps earning and letting them build trust. And when they break that trust, hey, well, we're going to take a step back until you have a time frame where you've earned it back. But that's important for them because, again, you want to launch a healthy, successful, adjusted adult. You don't want to launch the same kid at 12 years old, at 18 years old going off to college because they're going to go wild and they're going to just experience everything they can. Number 5, be strategic about unplugging and connecting. Be strategic about unplugging and connecting. Our world has lots of distractions. Your students' world has lots of distraction, even good things that want their focus. Even good things that want their focus. This goes back to that scheduling. Dictate time in your schedule, in your rhythms as a family that you unplug and spend time together. My family, growing up, I went to school 45 minutes from our home. My dad went 45 minutes the other direction from our home. My mom, like I mentioned, was on staff at a church, so ministry responsibilities. We had some crazy rhythms in our household. But my family always had Sunday lunch together, and we had one weeknight a week where we had a dinner together around the table. Did it always work out where that we had those two? Pretty much, because my parents guarded it. But there were times where it didn't and it got moved around. But there was a priority push to say, hey, we're going to spend time together. That's no devices. That's us sitting at the table. And yeah, that was 20 years ago, so devices were a little different then. But the TV was off. We had a home-cooked meal, typically, not always. Sometimes it was Whataburger. And we talked. And I got to hear from my parents about what they were doing. They asked me questions. That matters. I've seen it with other families that, hey, dinners are really hard to pull off. You have kids at different ages, different commitments. Okay, maybe it's couch time. There's a family I know here at the church where they set it up that the couches are a spot where no cell phones exist and they spend time together. So for an hour and every night they get to watch a show together. They get to experience something together. They have family board game nights or family movie nights. You know these kind of rhythms. These are important because you are connecting together. Another little tip I just want to add in here, create tech-free areas in your home. That could be the dinner table. It could be, like I mentioned, a sofa area. I would strongly encourage you that it's the bedrooms. Your student has no need for a cell phone in their bedroom. There is more issues I encounter in counseling with students about what conversations or what they're exposed to behind closed doors. Please, please, please put that as a safety net in your home. Have charging stations, whether that's in your bedroom or around the kitchen, in the kitchen or something like that, where the students don't take their cell phones to their bedrooms. That's just a good insight. Number 6, make every topic worth discussing. Make every topic worth discussing. Ask questions, listen to your students' responses, but don't always give your opinions. Don't always give for your opinions. As your student is wrestling in their preteen years, more so than when they're in high school, in those middle school years, they're trying to create their own identity. They're trying to understand what they think of the world. So they're going to ask questions, and there are sometimes some shocking questions that your student may ask you. Some uncomfortable things that may come up about something they saw on TV or something they heard from a friend. And you've got to, as a parent, hold your poker face and be like, oh, yeah, you're talking about that. Okay. What do you think about that? Or what does that word mean to you? You ask these things. And then because you have a relationship, because you have a heart connection, you sense when your student's looking for your opinion, or they're just looking for feedback, or they just want to use you as a sounding board. But you have to kind of navigate that, but you need to make every topic worth discussing. I mentioned every topic. We're in the middle right now of talking about sex, dating, and relationships with our middle school and high school students. We're doing that on Sunday mornings. I shared that with our parents a couple weeks ago via email. I said, hey, this is coming. This is what we're talking about. Nothing's like a health class at school. Nothing like that's talking about. We're just trying to go a biblical approach of this is what God's word says. When I think back to my teenage years, and I mentioned a lot of the great things my parents did, we never talked about sex, ever. It was off limits. I don't know why it was that way. I learned about sex from a school health class at my private school. And when that day was, unfortunately, my parents were out of town and I was staying with family friends. I think back and I never had conversations with my parents, even as an adult, about sex. And I think about that, and that was hard on me because I look at some of the choices I made and it wasn't great choices. Those are still my choices. I don't blame my parents for it. But I know students who wish their parents would talk about them, even though they were like, oh, that's embarrassing to talk about it. There's ways to talk about it, age appropriate, and build it up where it's normal to have open conversations about these things. Because our culture is having all the conversations. They're having all the education. And if we don't step in as parents, we're messing it up. All right. Number 7, model healthy relationships. Model healthy relationships. There's 3 I identified. The first is romantic. How do you love your spouse? Do you honor and respect them in front of your kids? Do you show affection to them in front of your kids? Do your kids see a godly marriage? Do they see a godly marriage? That's convicting at times because there's those moments, right, in a relationship where you have friction or you want to have an argument and you're like, I just got to say it, and then your kids are right here. Or they're close enough where they can hear the exchange of words happening. Or a cell phone call comes in, you hang up, and you're frustrated with your spouse over what they have chosen to buy or go spend their time on or whatever it is, and you just say something offhand. Your kid's right there processing all that. Honor and respect your spouse in front of your kids. That'll set them up for what they see as a romantic relationship going forward. It matters. Friendships. Do your kids have examples in your life of what friendship needs to look like? Do you live with good friends? Do you have good community around you? Do you pursue relationships with other people? Do you find accountability? All those kind of things. Not that you need to share all those conversations with your kids, but I think it's important that they see that their parents have friends and what it looks like to have friends and what it looks like to honor people and to befriend people and to care for other people. You set up the stage with all that when they're younger in elementary, truthfully, but as they get into high school and middle school, friendships are going to be wildly important. And then thirdly, I put strangers down. How do you interact with the rest of the world? And this goes back to some of the church points I made earlier. Do your kids see you evangelize? Do they see you be the hands and feet of Jesus? Do you ever serve together as a family? Do you ever go on mission together? Do you pursue your neighbors on your street and do acts of kindness or invite them to church activities or Easter or whatever it is? Include your kids in that. Because again, you're modeling, you're setting the example for what their adult life needs to look like. Number 8, give chances for them to succeed and to fail while the safety net exists. Give chances for them to succeed and to fail while the safety net exists. The teenage years is full of highs and lows. One day can be a success full of victory and awesomeness, and the next is the worst possible day they've ever had. You need to be alongside them for that, right? We talked about having pathways for trust. When they fall short, those are opportunities for you to coach, encourage, correct, not to tear down and defeat, okay? Not to tear down and defeat. So I look at some practical examples of how you can give them chances to succeed. One is finances. Your family may not be in a spot where they can, have all the bells and whistles, all the things, a huge, allowance or whatever it is, but give them pathways so that they can start to own and manage money when they're a teenager. I know that's often modeled. My parents started helping me learn what it means to tithe and have an allowance and do chores when I was in elementary school. But if that's not something yet, by middle school, please let that be the case, right? Give them opportunities to earn money, to do that, whether it's babysitting, lawn mowing, all those kind of things in the neighborhood. That way, they can start to understand what it looks like. And when they do something dumb with their money, hopefully that happens while they're at home still, and you can help them, and they're not, using up all their college funds, and then they're broke as a freshman in college, which may be the case no matter what. That may, college is tough, but you want to give them those examples. The other part of that, and this is a little bit where I understand there's some wiggle room here because the Bible's not overly clear on it, but it's dating. I would take the stance, and the experience I've seen in 16 years of student ministry, middle school students don't need a date. They don't. There's no need for romantic relationships when you're in middle school. It's far more destructive than it's beneficial. High school, there is at different points of maturity that can happen, and it can become acceptable, right? It can become a good thing. I mean, I even look at my parents. They were high school sweethearts. They started dating in high school, and they've been married 53 years. Like, it can work out. I'm sure there's some in this room who dated their spouse in high school. It can work out. It can also work out very poorly, and we can see the destruction of what a teenage dating relationship can do internally and externally in a relationship. With your kids, help them see what it looks like to navigate dating while they're in your house. Don't let them be 18, 19, 20 years old trying to figure out how to pursue a spouse and what that looks like. Give them some practice. Give them some opportunities. And so I look at 15 or 16 years old as a great little benchmark, but even then there's boundaries. It's not like, hey, here's the keys, have fun. It's, okay, hey, I think you might be ready. You have a conversation because conversations are normal in your relationship. Hey, maybe it's a group dating situation. You like this girl or this guy, that's great. I would want to talk to their parents and I would want to talk to them before you start dating them. Okay, and we're going to talk about group dating. And then if they can be trusted with that, hey, 6 months or so, 9 months, a year, hey, you know what? Maybe you can take them to the school dance, and y'all can go to dinner beforehand or whatever that looks like. But you build it up and you give them opportunities to succeed and to fail. Number 9, and I know I'm taking a little more time, establish and reestablish boundaries as they grow. As you parent teenagers and all kids, you parent with the end in mind. How will they launch as adults? And so what was not acceptable when they were 5 years old may now be acceptable when they're 12, right? Bedtimes change, curfews adjust, what you allow them to watch or consume, all those kind of things adjust with maturity. And every kid's different. Every kid is different. There's not a say like, hey, when they're 13, they're ready for this. Every one of them. No, they're not. But you've got to navigate your kids, right? Lee and Debbie have mentioned how both, in their home, you had kids that went different ways. My home was the same. I'm one of 3. My sister went one way. My brother went way over here. And then I'm somewhere kind of more like my sister, but my brother's still way over here. Went differently. My parents had to parent us differently. But what I'm thankful for is they gave us freedoms and opportunities as we grew, and they didn't just keep a burden of rules over us. That's healthy to give them space, to give them opportunities and reestablish those boundaries. And then the last one, show up and be present. Show up and be present. I've talked a lot about my parents and the wins I've gotten to see and witness. My dad never missed a basketball game for me. He never missed a soccer game because he was always my coach, but in high school I played I had the opportunity. I played varsity basketball as a freshman, played all 4 years. We had tournaments in other states. We traveled. That was kind of how our basketball program worked. And my dad would find ways to take vacation time or to work out of the office. He worked Saturdays and Sunday afternoons sometimes so that he could be at my games Tuesday nights and Friday nights, so that he could be at every one. He was there. I didn't have to question it, whether I was injured, not playing, sitting on the bench, starting, all of it. He was there. And that matters to me. Thinking back now, the legacy my dad imparted on me is he showed up in my life. And your kids needed you to show up. Even if it's something you don't care about or not interested in. I will develop a huge interest in music if my son or the next baby wants to be a musician. My wife loves music, so I think the odds are pretty good they're going to like it in some way. I have no interest. I can't sing. I can't play an instrument. None of that. I'm like, it's not for me. Give me a sport any day, I'll watch it. Our student ministry loves to funnel parents to encourage them to check that out if they're looking like, hey, how do I jumpstart my relationship with my sixth grader? Here's a great start. Hey, how do I help with my freshman? Right here. Here's a great start. So I just want to put that in your hands. Thank you all for having me. Debbie, this is good. This is good.